My name is Brendan MacFarlane. Our office is called Jakob MacFarlane. We're based in Paris, in France. Our approach to architecture, we're interested in ideas. For us, ideas run the project. We're basically interested in a conceptual approach, a critical approach, meaning that it's the ideas that essentially put into question or will be put into question the programs, the site, the situation, the clients. It's true that we're quite interested in materializing and building our architecture. So we're trying to find a space between the two, between the ideas and realizing architecture. Is that first of all, we start with a problem or we start with a project and we try and eliminate all preconceptions. So that's, at the beginning, we try and think of zero, nothing, which is, of course, not easy because, of course, you have a lot of immediate responses to a project. So, of course, it's partially, on the one hand, capturing those responses, but then somehow eliminating them, putting them to the side, and taking something down to its essentials. So then this notion of a kind of essentials or fundamentals would be is something which is quite important to us, taking it down to the skeleton ideas. And then from there, we tend to have a very open process. We look at a number of different solutions to a project. Projects are often, in fact, made up of many, many, many different things. And we go through a long process, laborious, of a kind of synthesis. But of course, that leads to maybe one thing which isn't actually necessarily a good response. And then we tend to go through a series of other places where we try and reject and we try and rework the project. So it's quite a laborious process that is a methodology, that's in a way the methodology of the office. Today I'm very interested in the fact that we are looking in our office quite seriously at taking on a robot and getting more involved in this technology where we can start to 3D print ourselves very large format elements. The FRAC for us this last year that was finished in Orléans, of course, was using a lot of technology issues in order to build the thing. And some of those issues, of course, changed the way we work in the office. One, of course, is a very obvious one, where the model was a completely shared model between our office and everyone making the thing. So we all were involved in this model that we were changing and building as we went along. And that was the virtual model. At the same time, we had the real thing being built. And the real building was being built elsewhere, in pieces, brought to the site, as a whole, brought to the site in pieces, reassembled on site, and then rescanned using digital scanning, 3D scanning and real scale. And the virtual model and the real site building, of course, being superimposed, and their capacity to give us a kind of level of finish and level of refinement in the building was extraordinary. That was a big step this year for our office in doing complex work. Well, I think the experimental needs to be absolutely supported. We do not support experimental in France. I think the title is a great title. I think the word fundamentals is something that we're all as an architectural profession really aware of as a kind of necessity to come back to something which is not what or where we have been for the last few years. Where we have been for the last few years is very, very expressive work, almost flamboyant work. And I think, the question is ultimately, where do you go with all of that? What does it just become actually at some point decoration? Because everything's overly expressive at some point in the architectural production in the last couple of years. So I think this notion of breaking that, which for me is how I read it in some ways, is a good one. The other thing, of course, is it's part of also the period we're in. We're in a very chaste, tough economic world, which we were not in 3 years ago or 4 years ago, or at least we're sort of in something which is impossible really to spend, in a sense, lots of money. And therefore impossible, and it's not just economic, it's impossible, it's almost too much to be doing work which is unnecessary. And so this idea of coming back to necessary, coming back to kind of the source, the base, is, I think, really good. I think it's, for me, I read it in those kinds of ways, and that I appreciate very much.